Had an encounter in 1999 when I was a senior in high school. It's a long story, but I have some copy pasta. For some background info, I was raised in the deserts of southeastern New Mexico, on 2 different ranches, so I am very well versed in the flora and fauna of our beautiful state. I even used to track semi-professionally for hunters and our local trapper. I know the critters around this state. We always lived on very remote ranches, 50, sometimes 75 miles from the nearest actual town. My senior year of high school, I moved out on my own, being a part of the DECA program, to live closer to my job and school. Living about 12 miles from Artesia, New Mexico, where my school and job were, seemed like living right in town after all of that. I guess my story starts in April of 1999. My boyfriend and I were rooming with a couple in a trailer house, just outside of Lakewood, New Mexico. We rented a room from them and sometimes watched their 2 kids as part of our rental agreement. For a few weeks that April, a lot of the neighboring landowners had been complaining about wild dogs coming up from the river and harassing their dogs and scaring their livestock. We were about a mile from the Pecos River, and wild dogs have indeed been a problem in the area. One guy had even reported some structural damage to one of his chicken coos. The couple we lived with had 2 dogs, both of them medium-sized terrier mixes, and neither one of them were on the cowardly side. They had been getting very skittish about going outside at night, though. So much so that we had to make sure to let them out right at sunset, and again at sunrise, because they would not leave the trailer house otherwise at night. I cannot properly stress to you what that area started to feel like at night. You just felt this presence, and it was squicking all of us out. One Saturday night at about 11 p.m., I know it was a Saturday because I had neither work or school. Near the end of the month, the 4 of us adults were sitting around watching TV and just kind of chatting about stuff, when the dogs, who were asleep in the master bedroom on the far east side of the house, started growling and barking at the window on the south wall of the bedroom. This was really unusual behavior for them, so we all got up to see what they were on about. By the time we got there, the dogs had shifted their barking away from the window and seemed to be barking at the wall and along the wall, like they could smell something there. But it was moving. I have never seen dogs react like that to anything. It was very strange, and when they came up to the end of the room, their barking just went even more crazy. Suddenly, from farther down the wall, about where the kitchen was, we all heard this loud thump and scuffling sound. It was powerful enough that we actually felt it move the trailer a bit, with it being an 80 by 16 trailer house and all. The dogs, at this point, just completely lost it. They cried out a high-pitched whine and just dove under the bed. We all ran out of the bedroom, down the hall, and into the kitchen to see what the heck was up. Peering out the kitchen window was pointless, as it was late. There was cloud cover and the moon wasn't even out. We heard the scuffling noise again from further down the house where the kids' bedrooms were, and went into the living room to see what was up. We were all really confused at this point. The next few moments seemed to happen in slow motion. Appearing in the living room window from the left and looking right in on us from the glass was, I don't know what. From the shoulders up was what I can only describe as a Dogman. Its shoulders were quite human with short, sleek hair, but it had the head of what looked to be kind of like a Rottweiler-Doberman mix. The snout was kind of boxy, but it had sharply pointed ears. And the teeth, those fucking huge-ass teeth. All 4 of us reacted by screaming, calling out, making fucking despair noises all at once. And I guess that scared it off because it just backed up and disappeared. That image is forever seared into my head. Also of note, this was a trailer house, so the bottom of that window was easily 6 foot off the ground, meaning this thing was 7 foot something. No matter how big of a dog or wolf it was, it could not have stood up and looked at us like that in that window. The guys, being idiots, immediately grabbed their shotguns and headed out the door, even though I told them it was a very stupid idea. Super dark desert night, big unknown critter. Ugh, pass. Thanks. I guess they were out there looking around for it for some 20 minutes before they came back inside and said they couldn't see anything. The light from the house shining on it and it being so close to the window were the only reasons we saw it in the first place. None of us really slept well that night. I even moved our bed away from the bedroom window as far as I could and put cardboard up so nothing could look in. The next morning, I got up early and decided to go have a look around to see if there were any tracks or signs left behind. The grass and weeds that were right beside the house pretty much hid any tracks it made there. Although I did find where it looked as if something had clawed at the siding along the bottom of the house in a couple of places, making the thump and scuffling sounds the night before. It was trying to get underneath the house. I then decided to follow the tracks the guys had made, and that was when I made a second, very unnerving discovery. The guys made clear tracks in the sandy dirt, and whatever it was out there did as well, because it was pretty much circling them the entire time they were out there, at a distance of about 40 feet. The tracks were huge, canine, and switched back and forth from 4 feet to 2, meaning it was walking bipedally for at least half the time it circled them. I moved out a week later and finished up my last month of high school couch surfing in town. The thing is, I could have discounted seeing the stupid thing over time, but those tracks haunt the living fuck out of me. Alabama sighting. This sighting happened almost 20 years ago. I was driving down 65 in 2008. I was driving from Atlanta to Pensacola. After a long flight, I got to Atlanta at around 10 p.m. I had a friend who said I could stay with them for the night, but I wasn't feeling well, Campylobacter, so I decided to drive back that night. At around 3 a.m., I was in between Montgomery and Pensacola, near Flamiton, but just north of there. I was on 65 driving south, and I saw what I thought was a bear. It was over a deer carcass. It was pulling its leg off, and that's when I realized it wasn't a bear. It stood up and looked at me. Bears can't do what he was doing. He was twisting the leg off with his hand. The eyes, that was really what made me understand. He looked me in the eyes. His face was more wolf-like. He turned his upper body at the waist, which bears don't do. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't a bear, and it knew I saw it. I had slowed down to about 20 miles an hour. I was on the freeway, but at that time of night, there is never anyone on the road in that area. He was ripping the leg off of the deer, and when he saw me, he stopped. He took a few steps and jumped a fence into a pasture. This happened in 1982. I went to a house party with a friend. The party was somewhat lame, but I met a group of kids my age, 17, and one of them heard of a big house party somewhere else. 5 of us packed into a girl's car, but for whatever reason, she wanted me to drive. So I'm driving, the girl who owns the car is in the front passenger seat, while the back seat had 2 girls and a guy. The girl who knew where the party was giving me direction. It was snowing in the way that causes a Star Wars effect. It starts to become apparent that this girl doesn't know where she is going. She asks that we turn down one more road to find the party. We turn down a wide road and go about a mile without seeing houses or light of any kind. The girl says, "This isn't the right road." I begin to turn the car around right in the middle of the road. As I'm turning, a very large white shaggy dog comes out of the woods and casually walks across the road. One of the girls freaks out and begins crying and hyperventilating. The dog never looked at the car or acknowledged us. I drove back to the original party, got in my car, and went home. I never saw any of the kids who were with me. My friend had driven his car home. I don't know if this could have been Dogman. This happened between Traverse City and Kingsley, Michigan. Okay, story time. 2 strange events in my life. Maybe Dogman related, but be skeptic. Ghost dog. I've had encounter with a ghost dog barking. My sister heard it also, but at another occasion. It was around Halloween back in 2011. I haven't time to look up exact date time. I was outside the house and suddenly a loud bark, and what seemed like a dog wolf head appeared a split second just a few feet and a bit above my head. The bark kind of echoed in the atmosphere. It was really surreal. I talked with my sister about this, and she had a similar encounter or experience, but at another time. Strange black animal crossing the road. Another strange incident, around 10 years ago, was one evening when I was biking home after some outdoor adventures. I saw something big and black crawl across a 2-lane car road. I couldn't figure out in my head what I was seeing. Is it a cat? A deer? A bear? Actually looked like a big black puma or cougar thing taking up 1-lane body length as it crawled. It went from the right side of the road to the left side and went into a bushed area. I was walking with my bike to the bush area and put on my headlamp, shining into the bushes. I heard some big branches breaking and it sounded like a heavy creature. I saw 2 yellow eye shines looking back, and it let out a guttural growl. Whatever it was, it sounded heavy and big. I was kind of shaky and out of breath, but also curious about this thing. I didn't know much about cryptids back then. However, I wrote down my observation in a diary, also told parents back then about the experience. I only saw eye shine even with a headlight pointing at it. Saw no silhouette, only darkness surrounding the eyes. Could have been a bear, but back then I thought that was a really big black cat or whatever crossing the road. It was crawling with a low profile while crossing the road. It didn't run, move like a bear, but like an elegant giant black cat thing. I live in Middle Sweden. You can check the Cloaked Hedgehog website Dogman sighting map for more observations of supposed dogmen in Sweden. My possible dogman experience. This happened in Minnesota during the summer a few years ago. This is my first and only possible cryptid encounter. I actually heard something otherworldly, large and guttural bark at me one time in the middle of the night, while walking my dog in a local cemetery near some woods and river bottoms. Another crazy, and probably hard for some people to believe, fact is that this cemetery was built by Freemasons in the 1920s. Atop Historic, Sacred Dakota, Sioux Burial Grounds. The best way I can describe it is if a 500-pound Rottweiler mixed with a freight train horn barked almost directly into your ear. That's another odd part. At the same time, it sounded somehow 80 yards away in the nearby woods. It also sounded like it was standing over my shoulder. It was sort of surreal, possibly paranormal. Not even kidding. I was in shock momentarily and looked to my dog to see if I was hallucinating. Sure enough, she was on full alert, staring in the exact same direction I had been. Every hair on my body was standing up, and the adrenaline surging through my veins was like electricity. I have never, ever felt primal fear like that before or since. I'm a very big and passionate outdoorsman and have been in some scary predicaments throughout my adventures in the woods and on the water outside. But this takes the cake for me. Needless to say, we hightailed it out of there, and I was looking back over my shoulder with my flashlight every 5 seconds. I'll never forget it.
My boyfriend and I went out around 10:30 to go catch possums and raccoons at my school's arboretum one night. I've run these trails for months, 2 to 4 times a week at early hours of the morning when it was still dark. I know them inside out, and I'm comfortable with them. We walked my normal route, which just consists of taking the first path left and then walking forward with 0 turns. This takes you around the perimeter of the arboretum where you can literally see the football field and residential houses. We've been walking about 45 minutes when I hear a noise to the left of me like a small animal, and I look around in the bushes. The grass here isn't too long. He points toward the trail and asks if I see a deer. I've got pretty good night vision and senses. I've been walking the woods by myself since I was like 10, 11. I didn't see it, but he just kept pointing and saying that it was moving, and even said it leaped across the trail at one point. By this point, the woods were completely silent, save for some very faint bug noises, but I saw and heard nothing. I jokingly asked him if he was hallucinating, and he made an offhand comment about how it was unusual for a deer to be by itself. We didn't think anything of it until after we got out of the trail. We walk another mile or so, and the terrain looks totally unfamiliar and smells super strong like weed and burning. I look at him and tell him that this wasn't the trail I usually took, and I had no idea where we were. About there, the path forked into a very dark path forward and a small trail to the right, which was the direction of the entrance. Despite his insistence we go forward, I took us right. After not even 15 feet of walking that direction, I hear a faint crunch of a branch to my right and ask something like, "Did you hear that?" He takes his phone out and turns the light on, and I start looking in the field, thinking it's an armadillo or something. The grass here is incredibly dense, easily 4 feet tall and up to my lower chest. But there's no trees. We've verified on maps. He's holding the phone above my head for about 45 seconds to a minute. and then he just says my name and to look. I finally look above where I was searching the grass, and I see a pair of blue slanted eyes about 9 feet tall, almost like those of a mountain lion. So bright, they look like they were glowing even without the light. I watched them scan from his eyes to mine, and then it started moving diagonally, completely silently. I grab his wrist and tell him, "We have to go," and start pulling him back from the trail. I told him not to run because in my mind, I was trying to rationalize this being a bear. He walked backward and kept his eyes on it while I led us out forward. I took glances back occasionally, and I could see it stalking us at about a 10-foot distance. It kept moving crookedly and almost completely silent. The bushes didn't seem to move as it walked. The only thing you'd hear is the occasional crack of a small twig. After about a half mile of this, it lets out a shriek, for lack of a better word, like nothing I've heard before. I've heard mountain lions and coyotes, but this was completely different. At that point, we ran out of there, screaming prayers. We could hear the crickets and other bugs crescendo and get louder as we made our way back. I called my stepdad and explained what happened to him, and he stayed on the line while we made our way out. Neither he nor I are very superstitious. We would even make jokes about my mom burning sage in our house to get rid of bad energy, but I could tell by his voice he believed us and was trying to get us out without panicking us more. The whole time we were running, my boyfriend kept telling me things like, "This isn't the right path, we need to turn," even though it was just a straight shot back. Once we made it out, he couldn't stop looking toward the woods and kept telling me his body was telling him to go back and things like that. It was super unsettling. I didn't start to panic until we got back to his house. I couldn't stand going home alone and walking by that forest at night to get back to my dorm, so I stayed at his place until sunrise. Every time I tried to close my eyes to sleep, I saw images of the eyes and these fucked up deer. I didn't sleep for about 48 hours, and when I finally did, it was a restless 2 or 3 hours nap. I've had extreme paranoia since being back, and can't stand to go anywhere without him on the phone. We've tried to rationalize it, but nothing makes sense. It didn't move or sound like a bear, I've seen plenty, and there were no trees for it to have been a panther, not to mention the fact there's never been a sighting in this part of Florida for several miles. Nothing else but possibly a panther could have had those eyes, or that scream, nor stalked us through the woods the way it did. The only other thing I could imagine was a drone of some type, but the woods were dead silent and we never heard any mechanical sounds.